Donald Trump says he's finally getting ready to address the media. The first news conference since winning the election, 2 weeks out now. Set your countdown clock. He says he wants to discuss the future of his business empire. Apparently, it's a future that doesn't include him. But really? The panel tonight, Alice Stewart, CNN political commentator, former communications director for Republican presidential candidate Ted Cruz. Rebecca Berg, CNN political analyst and national political reporter for Real Clear Politics. Margaret Hoover is here, CNN political commentator, former George W. Bush White House staffer and veteran of 2 Republican presidential campaigns. And Danielle McLaughlin, a Democratic strategist and constitutional attorney, which makes all of you much smarter than me. Okay, guys, let us first talk about business. Donald Trump, Margaret, he has promised throughout that he would cut ties with business. And there has been so much ink written, newspapers, on TV. We have known from the very beginning that there were these real or perceived conflict of interest that Donald Trump was going to need to address. And he said he was going to, but recently he's said to the New York Times, he doesn't really legally need to do anything. Right. And he's not necessarily wrong.
Right.
So where is the pressure coming from to do any of this?
Well, the pressure comes from the populace. The pressure comes from the American electorate. Here's the thing. I mean, we have a thing in American politics called precedent that most people revere until they don't anymore. Remember George Washington? There was a precedent for a 2-term presidency until Franklin Delano Roosevelt decided to run for a 3rd term. What happened next? Congress legislated. They made that precedent law. There is now a legislative bill in the House of Representatives to make tax returns a transparent thing that everybody who runs now for president must reveal their taxes, okay, if we want that kind of transparency. So if the American electorate and the American people decide that we need to actually codify this elimination of conflict of interest at the executive level, we got to pass a law.
So his supporters didn't care. I mean, that's the thing. They knew about these conflict of interest, Alice. You were out there in the campaign. They didn't care. When you were working with Ted Cruz, that was one thing that he brought up a lot.
Of course. And speaking of precedent, the precedent has always been to release your tax returns, which he did not do. Right. And the precedent has always been sever ties with businesses that aren't related to the business. Everyone watching this program, I can guarantee you there is a Trump business fingerprint within a few miles of where they are, because it's a global enterprise all across the world, and it will take time. The fact that he is taking steps to do this, he is wanting to do away with the perception of a conflict of interest. Right. And I think that's a good thing. And I think clearly, given the broad scope of his enterprise, it will take time. And hearing that his attorneys are working through the paperwork, setting a date when he will announce it and go over the details, I think is important to putting a lot of concerns at bay.
Do you find it fascinating that he announces his first press conference? Obviously, reporters, we want to have our first opportunity to question the president-elect since winning the election. He announces the press conference, but says it's going to be about this with his children by his side.
Well, maybe that's wishful thinking, because once a press conference gets started, it can go in any direction that the press decides.
Just as Barack Obama and every president before that.
Right, but certainly there is a great deal of interest among the press and the media about this issue in particular, and it's not only an issue of ethics, but it's also a political issue for Donald Trump, because his whole campaign was run basically against Hillary Clinton, making the argument that she was corrupt, that she was profiting from her government positions, her past service to the government. And so if Donald Trump and his children begin profiting from his government service, it begins to look hypocritical.
It is all in the details. I wonder, I mean, what are the chances, Danielle, that you think he comes out and he says, I'm cutting ties, I'm liquidating, as the conservative Wall Street Journal wants him to, and I'm going to have an unknown person handle all of my money. Chances that he says that in this press conference?
The chances are utterly zero. And I think everyone sitting at this table figures that out, and I think most Americans have figured that out as well. It's not clear what he's going to do, but it looks like it's not going to go to the extent that Barack Obama did, or Bush 1 or Bush 2.
Let's be honest, no matter what he says, are Democrats ever going to be satisfied?
Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Let's wait and see. But he's not going to be liquidating assets. It doesn't look like it's going to be a true blind trust. Right. It looks like his children will be running the show. And so the question becomes, you know, the extent to which they are involved in political decisions. Is there really the wall, that Chinese wall that we would say in the legal profession, that really needs to be there for there to be no conflict of interest?
So let's talk about draining the swamp. Draining the swamp by definition means what, Rebecca?
Well, it's kind of like a Rorschach test, right? Because it can mean a lot of different things. Technically, you would think the phrase refers to Washington, D.C. specifically, because it is a very swampy town. My hair in the summer, you wouldn't want to see it. But it can also mean just more generally the well-connected.
The people who have always been there, the lobbyists, the trading of favors, the inside, the donors.
Exactly. And so this question of Donald Trump bringing in these Wall Street guys to work in his administration, for example, his incoming Treasury Secretary, a former Goldman Sachs banker, and now Trump is also meeting with the COO of Goldman Sachs. So you wonder, is that included for people when he talks about draining the swamp? And I think a number of his supporters, I mean, Donald Trump appealed to the working class in America, to people who aren't well connected, who have been left behind by the economic recovery. So would they look down on some of these choices?
Is it draining the swamp, or is it business as usual? I mean, let's call it what it is.
I think the key is these are Wall Street successful business people. And we're talking about Mnuchin or Ross. These are people that have been tremendously successful in their business endeavors, and they understand.
What did Donald Trump mean when he said drain the swamp?
Well, he's talking about drain the policies of the swamp, and that doesn't necessarily mean the people. No one knows how the process works, and the system works better than these experts, and they know how it works, and they know how it's rigged, and they're going to execute the policies. They helped draft these progressive policies that Donald Trump has implemented and campaigned on. They are the best people to execute it. And I would rather have a bunch of experienced business professionals and a bunch of academia, as Barack Obama has put into place.
That's also the thing. The flip side, wouldn't Democrats and others be railing if you just had a bunch of college professors with like absolutely no idea how to run anything come in? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's right. Look, it's a tricky proposition, because you need people who actually understand how government works, without having people who are part of propagating and continuing a system that does favor insiders over outsiders, right? So how do you walk that fine line? How do you both bring in fresh faces and keep government working again? It's a tricky proposition.
Shocker. Sometimes what are great campaign slogans are impossible to put in place when you actually need to govern. Shocker! Stand by, guys. Mitt Romney calls his dinner with Donald Trump enlightening. The panel. If I can make Margaret Hoover laugh with my commentary, I have won the day. Alice Stewart, about last night, what do you think happened there? What's your view of this?
I think the fact they had another dinner date or another meeting goes to show that clearly Mitt Romney must seriously be being considered for the Secretary of State's position. This, I don't think, was just another opportunity to break bread. With that being said, I think he would do a good job at the position. Clearly, I think he would bring in the party establishment. But you cannot ignore the fact a lot of Trump loyalists have problems with this, and it would rub them the wrong way. But at the end of the day, it's Trump's decision, and he will trust his gut whether or not Romney is fully committed and to do the job.
That statement by Romney afterward was really fascinating. Everyone's reading into enlightening, but the part that was most fascinating, you didn't hear an apology, but you did hear Romney talk about Trump is a winner. He didn't say he was sorry, but did he give Trump in that everything that he needed?
Well, yeah, I think that's right. I think, what was he going to say? I mean, he's clearly been the most vociferous, the most sort of.
Because some people are calling for him to eat crow and make a public apology.
I mean, he basically did. He said, look, he won, I didn't win. That was pretty close. But look, that whole thing last night, that never happens, okay? Like, people who are that wealthy don't go to public restaurants when they're being considered for top positions in the American government. Public dinners like that they're just like a fishbowl. They're just a basic big photo op, okay? Why? I mean, that's really the question. Who wins out of that? Maybe it helps Romney look gracious and humble, but it makes Donald Trump look good, whether he names him or not. This helps Donald Trump, not Mitt Romney.
And to me, it says how much Mitt Romney really wants a job. Mitt Romney's not stupid.
Mitt Romney is a guy of service, though, right? I think Mitt Romney wants to serve his country. I don't think it's about him wanting to serve Donald Trump. He wants to serve the country.
But he's going to serve it 4 years when there's another president.
We're not going to have.
If he wins again.
Romney's not going to apologize. He's not going to eat crow. He did eat some frog legs, but he's not going to eat crow.
Much better than crow.
But I think this was clearly another opportunity. They don't really know each other very well. They haven't had any time together.
Get a private dining room.
Yeah. Right.
Get a private dining room. Okay,
well, that's not Donald Trump style, though.
It wasn't the 21 Club when he didn't tell the pool where he was going.
It's all a new day. Okay, let's talk about Democrats for a second, if we could. Nancy Pelosi, she has been the leader of the Democratic Party on Capitol Hill since 2003, I believe.
14 years.
And now she was elected to be the leader of the party again. For a party that is still licking its wounds, trying to figure out where they're going to go, suffered big losses from the presidency to Capitol Hill. How is Nancy Pelosi the face of change, Danielle?
She's not the face of change, but I think that she has done a good job over a long period of time, certainly as a fundraiser, and someone who has pushed through Democratic legislation that Democrats wanted to see. So I think that's really important. She's a septuagenarian, and there are many people at the top of that Democratic Party that are septuagenarians, and so it was clear to her that change had to come. So she has made some policy changes within the Congressional Caucus so that there will be places for more junior congressmen and congresswomen. I think that's really important. She survived 2010 when the Democrats lost 63 seats. So this is a big loss, but we've had big losses before. I think midterms are going to be interesting, and maybe the next and maybe final challenge to her. Midterms tend to swing conservative because there's not a lot of turnout. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens basically between now and 2018.
Nancy Pelosi winning leadership again. Is that good or bad? Is that better or worse for Republicans and Donald Trump?
I mean, no question it's good for Republicans.
Yeah, I agree,
mean, the Republican
totally.
National Committee put out a banner immediately saying, "Welcome back, Nancy Pelosi."
Yeah. I think last time she won, the Republican National Committee sent me cups that were about Nancy Pelosi.
I mean, Republicans spent millions of dollars running against Nancy Pelosi because people think of her as a San Francisco liberal, out of touch with regular Americans. So the Republicans love this and they run on this. I mean, the real, I think, thing about her reelection with this challenge to her, which was, a third of the caucus didn't vote for her. That registration of discontent with her, I think, really codified around a gripe that Democrats haven't dealt with economic issues.
It's a wake-up call. If it wasn't, it should be a wake-up call for her. And there is a sense that it is for Democrats.
And she's gotten a lot done. I think if there is a face of change with the Democrat, it needs to be at the Democratic National Committee. I think we'll see that there.
Oh, we're waiting for that now, too. Yeah. We'll introduce those names later. I keep telling our international viewers, not going to do that yet. Guys.